Welcome to Women's Rugby Rundown 201 for May 12th through the 18th. We start with the Asia Rugby Championships, where Japan opened their title defense with a dominant shutout over Kazakhstan. In PAC4 action, Canada and New Zealand battled to a thrilling draw, while the Wallaroos outlasted the United States. World Rugby marked 100 days to go with a new trophy and a fresh ticket release, as England 2025 shapes up to be the biggest Women's Rugby World Cup yet. There were 4 domestic championship matches over the weekend, including the USA Club Nationals, where the Utah Vipers and Las Vegas Irish took home titles. In Spain, Salvador snapped Majadahonda's 7 title streak to claim the Iberdrola Final, and in Uganda, the Black Pearls secured their 4th straight premiership crown. All eyes are on International Gay Rugby this summer, with 2 flagship tournaments taking place on the same weekend. It starts with the 2025 Union Cup, kicking off in Oslo May 28th, and then the 2025 NORAM Cup follows in Boston, bringing together LGBTQ plus clubs and allies from across North America. Finish off, we'll round up all the club and premier competitions worldwide. I'm Wendy, here to bring you the latest in women's rugby news. This is your Women's Rugby Rundown, and we're about to kick off. We'll start with Sevens news. Criticisms of the revamped HSBC Sevens series continue. We learned from the International Rugby Players Association, the IRP, that initially they were engaged in broad discussions of this possible revamp, but then those discussions fell off, and World Rugby essentially made all of these changes on their own without keeping the most important perspective in mind, the players' perspective, not to mention the coaches and the fans and all of the sponsors' perspectives as well. We'll switch over to 15's news now. Japan got their defense of their title of the Asia Women's Rugby Championship off to a strong start, as they were able to roll 90 points over Kazakhstan, and they look to be on their way to have another title championship under their belt. In the second round of the PAC4, Canada and New Zealand played to a thrilling 27-27 draw in Christchurch, with Canada nearly pulling off back-to-back wins against the Black Ferns, but settling for a tie that keeps them ranked second in the world, heading into their final match against Australia. The Wallaroos edged the United States 2017-19 behind standout performances from Charlotte Caslick and Ashley Masters, gaining a confidence boost ahead of their Rugby World Cup rematch this September. What does that do for the standings in the PAC4? New Zealand's on top, but they're tied with Canada, so it's really just that points differential that's the difference there. Wallaroos in 3rd, United States in 4th. 2 matches to go. We'll have Australia versus Canada this weekend, and then New Zealand versus the United States. So it really comes down to New Zealand and Canada, who's going to win, and they'll take the title. With 100 days to go until the kickoff, World Rugby unveiled a new Women's Rugby World Cup trophy and released more tickets as we get ready for the World Cup to come this fall. The IGR Union Cup begins May 28th in Oslo, and a really exciting part of it is that there will be the first ever Ruck You Match on June 1st, where a team of trans women will face international women's rugby players aiming to challenge bans in championship inclusion in rugby. We had looked at possible shakeups in the World Rugby rankings last week on Blue Sky, but it really meant there were to be a lot of upsets, and there were no upsets essentially on the weekend, so you can see all the scores. The busy international women's rugby schedule continues. We've got matches coming up this weekend, as we mentioned, Asia Rugby Championship, Kazakhstan versus Hong Kong, PAC4, Australia, Canada, New Zealand, United States, and then an international part of the Rugby Americas North, Jamaica versus Mexico. More Asia Rugby, Japan will take on Hong Kong, where if they win that one, they win the entire championship. And then another international, Jamaica and Trinidad and Tobago, and then the Federal Elite One Championships. And then, of course, there's more to come in June. That is the entire June schedule as of today. There may be more added, as we know there are more matches coming as teams warm up for the Rugby World Cup this fall. We'll switch over to 15's news now. As we mentioned at the top, 4 championships this weekend in domestic leagues. First, the United States had their club championship, and in D1, so the top competition below the professional league, the WRR, it was a big one. Nova was the defending champions. They made it through the semifinals, beating Metropolis Valkyries, but then stumbled as they met a very strong Utah Vipers side who demolished the Houston Sharks on Friday, and they became the new champions of the women's D1, their first ever championship. Then in D2, another upset. Phoenixville were fighting. They got through on Saturday, defeating the Grand Rapids Growlers, but then met a very feisty Las Vegas side, and they had a championship to win, and they did so. The Black Pearls are Uganda Women's Rugby Premiership champions for the 4th straight year. They sealed the title by a single point, despite a 24-10 loss to the Thunderbirds in the championship. And that did end an incredible 35-match unbeaten run dating back to 2021. But they got the title. El Salvador clinched the Iberdrola Rugby League title with a 31-12 win over Majadahonda, completing the league and cup double, snapping their rivals' run of 7 straight championships to secure their second ever crown. Boston and New York came away with wins in WER Round 9. New York broke the tie with the Breakers, and Boston holds on to second. That does it for the video this week. Of course, there's more news on our site at ycrugby.com. Never miss an episode of Women's Rugby Rundown by subscribing on Patreon, Spotify, YouTube, or your favorite social media platform.